Alright, so Wiggles is over working on the tractor. I need to make one of these pins. You can see this one is really cooked again. This is one that they missed when I made that other batch of them. So anyway, on the last ones, I torched them loose, but it was a lot of work and mess. They were longer pins, so I was reluctant to do them the way I am now, because there would have been way more overhang. But I've got this in here tight, and I'm going to go in and try and cut out that weld and see if I can get this end plate knocked off so I can reuse it. So we'll see how this goes. I need to get back into this corner more, so I'm going to have to switch to a boring bar. I haven't got the relief on the bottom edge of my tool that I need with this tool to be able to do it. Alright, so we got that knocked off there. Now we got to machine this pin up. So after the last ones of these I did, I posted a little bit of a video on that. And one of the viewers, I apologize, I can't remember your name at the moment, commented, because I'd mentioned how I was burning up a lot of carbide, and said, because these are case hardened, by the way, heavy case hardening, and 1045 with a big skin on it. Anyways, and said, you need to run CBN. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of the newer or more exotic, now I'm realizing now that I've read up on it, CBN's been out a while, but you got to understand, I'm from a very manual machining background, and most of my machining experience is, you know, like my real learning phase was 20 years ago, or over 25 years ago in my dad's shop. And since then, I've always been freelance, so I haven't been in a big shop environment where I'm hearing about the latest and greatest stuff, and I tend to run what works for me. So anyway, I did some research on it and ordered myself up a couple of CBN inserts, and we're going to see what we can do with it. So this is a 4 1/4 inch pin. A little bit of research I did said we ought to be running around 400 RPM on that, so 431 is the closest on the dial. And I've got it set for 5 thousandths per revolution of feed rate, and we're going to send it and see what she does. She says, yes sir, let's eat that for lunch. Wow. Yeah, much different reaction than I got from my carbide. And frankly, way higher revs. Let's see where I'm at here, lunch. We got a good 300 thou to go. On the side to see what it says to that. Straight up fire and brimstone coming off there. Another 30 on the side. hardening it down. Done. So I'm getting ready to nail this on here. I'm going to run this on with the 16th inch dual shield now, I've decided. So I don't have anything right size to shove those. I got this weird wonky piece of aluminum here, and we're gonna do some cutting on it and turn it into a pusher for this project. All right, round two. Get a big flangety bang and she all falls out the bottom. All right, well, let's get this thing flipped around. Alright, so what we've discovered is, we already knew this face majorly wore basically from here around, because stuff was so shot in this thing, it was letting this dog bone cock way over. So I got to weld halfway around this face and build it up. But then the bummer is the bore is also hurting there. I was really hoping it wasn't, but it's way oversized for at least the bottom third of that bore. It had broke the edge off the previous bushing. You see, busted the edge off from it. When they start doing that, the bore's hurt. I just was hoping otherwise against reason. But so anyway, we're gonna get set up here, run that. I really wanted to put this on the new rotary positioner that Cody hooked us up with, but I had it on there. It was just too awkward of a piece. It's hanging way offside. I really would need the bore laying horizontal to do a good job of welding, and the it's such a huge off-center weight that the motor didn't want to swing it. And I could have screwed around and tried adding, counterweight on the other side, but I kind of suspect we were getting up there beyond the weight that thing's designed to swing, and I didn't want to tax it. So we're just going to go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way, where I lay it on each edge, weld the bore up. So anyway, we're going to get at it here. I know I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again, just in case somebody new is watching. Never, 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 never use the chlorinated brake parts cleaner. Cleaning up around something you're going to weld on, because you can very much die from gas. Last time I mentioned this, somebody said, oh, you can't even buy that kind anymore. Well, maybe in California you can't, but it's still on the shelf here. So and, just Google what they say happens if that stuff is exposed to an arc. Converts it into basically, the colloquial term for it's mustard gas. Literally the same thing that killed hundreds of thousands of people in World War I. This stuff will light on fire, but at least it won't kill you other than by the flames if you suspect it. Alright, so this face was primarily worn around that half, but it was scuffed up bad enough that I went ahead and just ran all the way around it. You may notice that I've intentionally stopped short of the edge here, a bit here. It's because this outer ring didn't actually show any wear. It must have had a spacer or something in there, so I've left that, and I will just machine down until I touch off on those bits around the edges like that. Use that to decide what my depth ought to be. So at any rate, I think we're ready. I've got, say, this end all built up around there. It's time to flip this up 90 degrees and start welding this bore up, and then get it on the boring mill and go to work on it. So I ran out of shielding gas for about half a dozen passes. Well, it was slowly running out. I didn't realize that that's one downside to the dual shield is with the flux laying on the surface, it can shield that kind of stuff. It felt funny, so I stopped, chipped flux up. That's what I saw. So I'm going to get in there with a grinder and grind that section out. I went ahead and kept welding ways after I put the gas on. I thought, you know what, we're going to go back, grind that out, and get this thing straightened out. Lay some weld back in there. Alright, so she's fully welded now. That all done. That face full weld, the bore on this one full weld, and then half of this face welded where it was missing a bunch of meat. So we're gonna go get her stuck on the boring mill next and figure out what to do with it. Dual feeding again, up and across on X all at the same time. X and Y, I guess, simultaneously. Alright, there we have it. Not too bad. Got a little witness mark there, but you can see that's where I hadn't touched the outside or welded it, just leaving that witness around the edge. A little bit around the middle because I didn't dare weld all the way to the bore. This one, the bore was good, so didn't want to have to get in there and redo it just because I had stupidly got into it. So anyway, I think it's time to flip this thing around and face this off and do the bore. Alright, we're taking our first skim through there just to kind of see how it's looking. Taking a pretty light cut. So in this kind of thing where I got a full weld and a blown hole, I'm actually just as concerned with am I centered in my weld as I am with am I perfectly centered in the boss. It's not worth having to do any touch up if you end up off center like this. The outside of this boss means nothing, and because I fully welded the bore, I have nothing to go off from there. We'll just center up in our weld, carve on through there. Looking pretty good for an initial roughing pass. Might need to bump it over a little bit, cutting a little bit heavier on that side. Looking pretty good overall though. Want to advance the tool 25 thousandths. Oops. No radical there. There we go. Looks like we're off to a good start. Should be like I might have overcompensated a little bit when I moved over, but it's no big deal. We're working our way out. I'll just bump it back. We're pretty well cleaning up on that side. Now we're not quite cleaning up on this side. I probably only should have moved over 15. I moved over 20, so it's okay. We're a long ways from finished bore size, so trying to feel our way to where we need to be with this one. So you can see we got a fair amount not cleaning up there, so I need to shift over a little bit more because I got some pockets in there. Well, I don't know, maybe I guess it's about a wash. I'll probably go ahead and cut it there. So at any rate, I got to sharpen my tool and reset the depth. Go another round. I'm going to take another 25 thou cut, and then that should be our last roughing pass. This thing keeps tearing up the tooling every pass. Guess it just doesn't like the interrupted cut. Alright, now we're getting down to the brass tacks here where I gotta really decide if I'm centered up how I want to be, because we don't have a lot of material left to remove anymore. So, I gotta do some measuring and decide if I think it's going to clean up or not. I guess we'll do that and then bring you guys back. Alright, assuming we like this, what this looks like after this pass, I probably only have about one more pass after this. Taking 10 thou on a side right now. See what that looks like after she gets done carving her way through there. Because this thing keeps wiping out my tool going through, I'm going to take this last one in 2 passes if I can. I only advanced the tool 5/1000ths, but about halfway through the bore I lost the tip last time, so it's going to be cutting heavier when it gets to that section. Anyway. See what she does when she gets over there. Looking pretty good otherwise though. Well, this should be finished pass here. Watch her get started in a minute. Well, she came out nice, hit my number dead on. So with what I did with not overboring it, you can definitely see where I'm going to, like, it was mostly hammered out on the edges. So this is all weld filler, and then I'm probably, you know, slightly breaking into base metal in a few spots in the middle here. But at any rate, we are ready to pull this thing off the boring mill. Go stomp some bushings in it. Pump, Wiggles, pump! Alright, well, you're getting her pumped up. I'm going to go get the anti-seize and get ready to put the bushings in. Thinking to yourself, man, you're just throwing that in there by hand and not done all this pumping, huh? That one is in. Alright, now I gotta spin this out. Spin her around. Actually, maybe we can get away with just spinning it right where it's at here. We'll be putting a twist in the wrap, but actually we can probably just do that. Yeah. You don't put anti-seize on them, then a lot of times they'll gall up and just like sheet metal off when you put them in. Not good. I'm going to pump that back up a little bit. More. Right there. I'm pushing them in when I'm first starting. I stop and back it up every once in a while to let it kind of resettle in case it's loading it, side loading it all. Probably it right there. Shut her down, Wiggles. Well, everybody, there she is. One more part done. Bushings pressed in, pin ready to go. So I'm sure they'll send a guy up here tomorrow to pick that up, and we'll get her out of here, and then we'll get to dig into this one. This will be tomorrow's project. We got to weld up and rebore those holes. Machine replacements for these. You can see I got a piece of 4140 pre-hard for that. Got some generic size bushings to recreate those out of. So that'll be the next project. But for now, this one is ready to leave. Catch you guys next time. You have a good one.